Today on the show, we bring back the segment Real Talk Rant, and we're going to talk about that controversial Beauty and the Beast subject. What controversial Beauty and the Beast subject? Yes, that controversial Beauty and the Beast subject. All this and more on What the Hell Did We Just Watch? Welcome to another episode of What the Hell Did We Just Watch? The show that helps spread movie awareness. I am your host, Lumotional Lou. And how's everyone doing today? How's everyone's week going so far? I hope everybody's having a great time. I hope that everything's going great. Now, I just kind of want to get into this little segment here that, it's a little bit of a touchy subject apparently. And it's, after all these years, people still feel a little bit weird about this kind of stuff. And what I want to talk about is homosexuality in film, but we've always had that. So, I understand where, that this is not a new subject, but what's actually a new subject is the fact that now homosexuality or homosexuals in film, I should say, are not being typecasted anymore in cinema and also on television. And I'm going to speak especially about television, so why don't I just start it off with a conversation that I had with one of my sisters, and she gives me a call and she's like, "What's up? Have you been seeing the CW shows? How awesome is it? That's great." And we're talking about it. We're talking about the connections and how cool it is and how much fun I'm having listening to the show and watching the show. And I can't wait as it keeps going. These keep getting better and better. And that's something that I actually connect with my sister with, and we enjoy ourselves talking about it a lot. So out of nowhere in the conversation, she was like, "I have to tell you something." And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "I had to stop showing We Can't See Supergirl with my kids anymore." And I'm like, "What? Why?" And she was like, "And we can't watch Arrow. Or we have to fast forward, I should say, certain parts. They watch it, but they fast forward or they skip or whatever. And in some cases, they're just flat out not watching it." And I'm like, saying, what the hell's going on? Like, I didn't understand. And she was like, "Well, now they have a gay couple in Supergirl." And I was just like, oh, yeah. I totally just, it passed by my head. I didn't even think about it. I was like, "So what's the problem?" And she was like, "There's nothing problem. I'm not homophobic. I'm not any of those things. But we're watching this show, and they just previously had a Valentine's Day episode on Supergirl. And basically what happened was they gave this lesbian couple that story plot line that has been put in a lot of TV episodes and a lot of TV shows that do Valentine's Day, where it's just that one person doesn't like Valentine's Day. They think it's like this sham and all this and that. And, the significant others like agreeing at first and then in secret tells his or her friends that are like, "Yo, I'm like super romantic. I love Valentine's Day." And they're like, "Oh, just tell them. And then when they find out in a stupid way or in a bad way. And they have a fight about it. And then after the fight, they're separated. And then the other person, the one that hated Valentine's Day, sees the error of their ways, and then they do the apology scene, and then the apology scene ends with a kiss, and obviously a lot more, but on TV shows it just mostly ends with a kiss. This particular episode had that exact same plot point, that same story arc or whatever in that episode, but the thing that was different was that it was with a lesbian couple, and she forwarded the scenes and all that stuff to kind of like avoid the conversation, because like when we were kids and we were watching something and then we come across that one scene where they're having sex and the guy and the girl kissing on a bed and all that stuff, and we're doing the question stuff, and and for families that's usually much more just as embarrassing. Don't get me wrong, it's just as embarrassing, but it's not as hard or difficult or shameful to have that conversation of like, mom, dad, what are they doing? Now it's mom, dad, what are they doing? When it's normal stuff. Now it's mom, dad, how are two guys kissing, or how are two girls kissing on screen? Like, what is that? And that's a normal question. That's a normal child question. Her daughter, my niece, she's 8 or 9. I'm sorry if I if I incorrect that, but she's a very smart, intelligent little girl that is also curious, like all little girls and boys are. And they see something and they don't understand it, then in comes the question. Then they got to start asking, what's this, what's that, and what's the other thing? That's when things get a little bit harder for some families. And I totally understood where my sister was coming from. I wasn't offended, and she wasn't trying to offend anyone. I understood that now we live in a world where now we have to kind of talk about that thing. And there's some families that are just not with that. They are not ready for that kind of conversation and all this and that. It's just like a big, for some people, it's just like this big mess, and I totally get it. I totally get, for some of these families, I totally get where they're coming from. That's basically the thing. And then I'm not one person to say, make them watch it or tell them, you raise your kid your own way. I believe in that. I'm not going to tell you that you're going wrong by her or you're doing right by her. I mean, y'all say you're going right by her, but no parent likes to be told how to raise their child. It's their child for a reason. It's their responsibilities. Your 2 cents means shit because you don't take care of that child, So you can't come in and throw some 30-second kind of like advice, and yet, I don't have kids, Maybe soon, me and my woman, one of these days, maybe, probably going to happen. But for now, we don't have any children. And far be it from me to say to anyone, my sister or anyone, what I feel that they should and should not do with their child, So it's their decision. It's their way of parenting. It's their way of raising their child, But that goes without, saying with that. So I started thinking about like what it meant to be that kind of parent now, because believe it or not, I just came to this realization at that moment. Are not only the first generation to accept homosexuality in society, but we are also the first generation that are going to have to accept it in media where it's normal, where it's not forced, where the homosexual person, the gay person, is not playing the person that has to hide who they really are inside, and they don't have to hide it from their parents. They don't have to hide it from their friends. They don't have to do those plot lines anymore. There's no such thing as the secret plot line anymore, because now that's the world we live in now. Now they don't have to play the gay friend, that they're funny and the way they talk is funny, and it just makes everybody laugh and feel comfortable. They don't have to be that anymore. And that's great. Congratulations to the LG, I forget the acronym, but the gay and homosexual community. And that's fantastic, because now they get to be themselves on screen. Back then they were just like, in a way, closeted as well. You got a gay man playing a straight role or a gay woman playing a straight role. And then they would have those films about homosexuality, and they would be showing those movies about how they need equal rights, and how they, have to survive in a society that doesn't accept them and all that. Those days are over. You can still tell those stories, but now we live in a world where those stories don't need to be told anymore, because now they're making films and there's homosexuals in them, and they're playing themselves. They're getting homosexuals to play homosexual parts, because believe it or not, in film, that feels more real. It feels more accurate to the character. You know what I mean? It makes their character more three-dimensional. That's fantastic. You know what I mean? I there's no problem that I have with that, especially, coming from an aspiring filmmaker like myself, that I want my characters to be as authentic as possible without any of these kind of like shenanigans that they feel like they have to fit this mold because the way film will accept them in that specific way. So let's go for it, man. So back to the part where realizing that we like people our age, and I'm talking about anybody from the 30s to the 40s, in that kind of decade, those were the kind of homosexuals that we were exposed to on TV, more so actually on film, not necessarily on TV. They really didn't have that gay plot line like that when we were growing up. It wasn't something that was just normal on the TV screen. On film, there was a lot more. There's tons of films that kind of talked about, homosexuality and proving yourself to your family, and being a closet gay person, or being a gay person in a totally different city away from your family, and then having that plot. You're upset that you have to live apart from your family. You got to live over here when you really want to live near them. Because you're a family person, and we don't have to do that anymore now. Like in the show Riverdale, or in the CW shows on, the DC shows, they're openly gay. They're having regular relationships. They're giving them regular relationship story arcs. Their parents know they're gay. And everybody's okay with it. And even the ones that newly turn, everything, they don't have to keep it a secret. I mean, they do for a little bit, but they don't. They kind of like get it over with very, very, very fast. You know what I mean? And now they're putting them, and they're joining the team, and they're pulling their own weight like everybody else. You know what I mean? On Arrow, there's a character, a superhero character, who's a part of the Team Arrow, and he's gay, and they're going through that story arc where the husband told his other husband that he is a superhero, and the husband wants a divorce and all this. And I was like, that's normal storytelling if it was a heterosexual couple. And now they're putting that kind of plot point in there, and he had to have that whole kind of sadness scene where his husband left him, and then the husband wants a divorce and all this and that. And I'm like, whatever, man. You know what I mean? It's fine. And then like I said, on Supergirl, there was a girl that recently came out, and she, they were saying like, well, I always had it. And though it felt at times a little bit like shoehorned in, now that it's all done, where they're like, oh, I always had it in me. Now they're a regular couple. So if you came in now, you will never actually feel or see the difference. It will feel very normal. It will feel very real, the relationship, So that's fantastic. What else? Who else? Sarah Lance, who is the leader of the Legends of Tomorrow. She's a lesbian. Now, actually, she's bisexual because she started off on the show Arrow, and she was Oliver Queen's girlfriend. And then when they got separated, years later, they finally crossed paths, and somewhere along the line there, she fell in love with a woman. You know what I mean? So, and then after that, she's just always been into women now. So now there's like no hint of liking a man at all, like, since Oliver Queen. And that's fantastic too. That's fine. It doesn't even, hers actually feels more natural than the one in Supergirl when it started. So it's kind of like, oh, you didn't know this side of me. And, back then I was promiscuous because we were together, like, just fresh out of college, high school and all that stuff. So I was like, yeah, okay, that's a little bit more, makes a lot more sense. You know what I mean? So that's pretty cool. Let's see. I think that now I just want to kind of like tell you, kind of like show you, before I get into the Beauty and the Beast thing, like a little story about how us as a generation started off, into the homosexuality in film, and now more so on television. So I got to take you back to this Emotional Lou when he was 19 years old. Okay, so when I was 19 years old, I was exposed to. I've seen a lot of films that have homosexual character, gay characters, and things like that, but I remember being blown away by the film Magnolia, which is one of my favorite films of all time. It's on my top 20. Pretty soon we'll be talking about my top 20, trust me, and we're going to have a blast. But Magnolia had this character who was doing certain things, like he was going to get braces. He had like this lifestyle that he wanted to do, and it was kind of like obscure, and it didn't make any sense. Until we see later when he goes to a bar, we see that, this character wants to get braces. And then we see that when he goes to this bar, they focus on this guy that's a bartender, mid-20s, good looking dude, model kind of type guy, and when he smiles you see that he has braces, and that's where it kind of clicks, and I was like, oh wow, cool, and that was fine because there's no kind of like physical contact, or any kind of like any emotions coming out. It was just more, that's what I'm saying, like back in the day it was just mostly like with a stare, very subtle things like that. It's secret, and if you were homosexual there, you acted the part, but you weren't doing anything or saying anything that could possibly make an audience feel uncomfortable, and as the film progresses, and I hope I'm not spoiling it for everybody, because that movie came out in 1999. It's been like almost 20 years. It's like rolling on 18. And we see a scene where our character is so drunk, and he's having this argument with another bar hopper that's there, barfly, homosexual one, and he starts to just kind of like go into this trance where him being drunk and so upset that he was like, he had like this fuck it moment, and he starts yelling at the guy, the bartender. He's like, hey, and then which I love, because you think that he's talking to the guy that he's been arguing with, and then all of a sudden the camera pans to the bartender, and you're like, oh, okay, what the hell's going on? And then he says, I love you. He starts confessing his love to the bartender, and the bartender feels weirded out. You know what I mean? He feels super uncomfortable because he's being put on the spot. Now, I do get this feeling that the bartender is a homosexual. So it's not that, but that scene, what's important is that scene is just so overwhelming with feelings that he just starts confessing himself. I love you. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And he's talking about how it's like, if you be with me, I'll be good to you, and all this and that, like how a man confesses his love on film to a woman when they're in the drunk state. And it might be a little funny, but the thing is that this scene was not funny. He was drunk and he just like confessed his love. So there's nothing funny about that. And it wasn't even shown in a funny way, which is even more of a shocker for me at the time, because I'm watching. Now, mind you, this is before, we're talking 18 years back. This is before like the Brokeback Mountains, and before all these TV shows and all this and that, when we're still showing these characters being closeted, and things like that, or they were playing the funny girlfriend, gays, girlfriend, whatever, like stuff like that. And they're like, oh, this is my friend Oliver, you know what I mean? Whatever. And that was the day that I realized, holy shit, they can have, I'm 20 years old, 19, 20 years old. So give me a break. This is very, very brand new to me and for a lot of people watching it. And he's just confessing, and he's saying all these things. And I remember watching it in the theaters and feeling very uncomfortable, but also shocked at the same time, but not grossed out. I just was so shocked that was the first time that I've never seen that. I've never seen a gay man or a gay woman confess their love to a person of the same sex. So watching it on film was like, for me, watching it in real life, because it was done so well, and it was written so well, and it was acted so well, and I just blew my mind. Just blew my mind how that was. And I remember being kind of ashamed to like have to show that movie to some people, because I don't know how they would take the homosexuality part. Now I don't give a shit. You watch it, you better fucking watch that shit, and you shouldn't feel weird anymore, But back then in 1999, 2000, 2001, I was just like, I don't know how to give this movie to somebody. It's so good. It's fantastic. It's one of those movies for me where I'm like, you need to watch it. It's a fantastic film, because it's not only just about a gay couple. There's other characters in there, but I'm just talking about this specific moment, and it just blows my mind. The film blows my mind, 100%, always, around it, beginning to end. It's a 3-hour movie that goes by in an hour and a half for me, because it's so amazing, and then you fast forward to a part where, you start seeing that homosexuals weren't able to get married. And I remember seeing and saying to myself, it's illegal for homosexuals to get married, really? I really didn't know that. I was very naive, or I was very, open. I didn't know that homosexuals were restricted from expressing their love. And I remember saying to my mother, who is a Christian woman, and I said, if they're registered voters and they have to pay their taxes, they should be able to do whatever the hell they want in terms of getting married and having to go to school. They got to do everything that we do, and they're allowed to do everything that we do, minus that. That's crazy. Like, we're even before then, homosexuals were able to, gay people were able to adopt children. That was fine, but they couldn't get married. They couldn't be recognized by their state and by their nation that they're a married couple. That's idiocracy to me. It just didn't click, and it didn't make any sense to me. It's like you're taking away one privilege, yet they're able to have every single other one, because if they go to school and they bust their ass and they can get that high paying job, they can get that high paying CEO position and things like that. And they don't have to be closeted, homosexuals. I mean, I'm sure that back in the day they were, but now we live in an era where everybody knows that the CEO of Apple is a homosexual. He's gay, so hello, it's fine. It's fine. We, why don't I just stop there and just start talking about what this episode was really about. And what it was really about is the Beauty and the Beast controversy. So here's this quote unquote dilemma. So I'll take you back when they first announced that they were making a Beauty and the Beast remake. First and foremost, when it comes to remakes, I don't care. Believe it or not, Beauty and the Beast is like this one that's brand new. It's like the 8th or 9th remake. The one that you saw as a kid, that was the cartoon, it's for sentimental reasons that you like it. It's not the original Beauty and the Beast at all. That's like the 7th Beauty and the Beast remake, okay? The original Beauty and the Beast is a book. After that, the very first film was made, believe it or not, in 1946, okay? 1946. That was when the original, the very first Beauty and the Beast film was ever made. Sorry to burst your bubble, and it spawned numerous films and 2 television shows, one of which was from the 80s and one of which that is out now. I think they finished, but they did like 4 or 5 seasons on the CW, and it was called Beauty and the Beast, and it's modernized. It's not like Belle's character. I don't think her name is Belle, but Belle's character played by the most beautiful actress, because she's the one from Smallville, the one that played Lana, Kristen Kriok. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, you beautiful specimen of a woman, but you play a cop, and the Beast plays like this kind of like werewolf type kind of character, where it's like that instead of like the whole like love story of like, oh, I'm a beast and I'm ugly and I'm in this castle. That's not the storyline. It's something else. But the TV show from the 80s was that. And point blank is this, like, get over the remake things because it's just the way it is, And now when the announcement of the remake was being said, I said to myself, okay, whatever. Obviously, Disney's been very successful in their remake genre with making live actions of their cartoons. And I was like, obviously, this is coming. Believe it or not, I'm going to also spill the beans for you right now. Dumbo is coming. Whatchamacallit? The Lion King is coming. Aladdin wasn't announced yet, but best believe that it's coming. Pinocchio has been remade live action lots of times, and I wouldn't pass it by them for Disney to make a remake of that as well. It's just all a matter of time. And Snow White got a live action remake, but it wasn't made by Disney, but it's just a matter of time. And that passes by that they'll just make one. Okay, then they'll make their own version, Disney made, and it'll look exactly or feel exactly like the cartoon they made before. I'm waiting for a Sleeping Beauty. We got Maleficent, but it ain't the same thing. I want Sleeping Beauty. That's my favorite Disney cartoon of all time. But see, I always get all emotional and start going off course of shit. So what I'm going back to the Beauty and the Beast thing, when it came out, remake, I was like, okay, whatever. Then the trailer airs. Then the trailer comes out. And I noticed the trailer. I thought it was fantastic. It looks beautiful cinematically. It just looks amazing. But then I started watching. I was like, wait a minute. This looks familiar. That's how much the Beauty and the Beast cartoon is, jarred in people's brains. They literally remade the trailer from the original cartoon into a live action trailer. So we were watching the same exact trailer from 1991, just a live action version of it. And I was like, okay, the trailer looks cool, looks beautiful, the movie looks great. What are they doing? And people were like, what are you talking about? I was like, did you not notice that that's an exact remake? And people were like, no, I didn't notice. I'm like, how can you not notice? We just got the same exact trailer, almost shot for shot. And I'm like, what are they doing? Like, I don't like that. I don't like when people, that's one thing I actually will stand up about not liking. I don't care about remakes, but I will say that I don't think your remake should literally be the exact same movie as the original or the one that it's being remade from, and there's a difference. Okay. Psycho was shitted on. The remake of Psycho was shitted on because it is not only an exact remake, but it is a shot-for-shot remake. And what I mean by shot-for-shot is that the film was literally shot the exact same way that the original was shot. He just literally took the same camera shots and put them in the exact same way in this movie. That's a no-no. We have that already. Why are you making the exact same movie? And the only thing that's different is that it's in color? That is just stupid. So I was, and I was just like, oh my God, no, it's a site. And I was telling to myself, I was like, this is Psycho all over again. I'm getting emotional about this bullshit, And so as time goes on, I'm having conversations with people saying, I don't know if it's a good idea that it should be an exact remake. I don't know if that's, if that's going to like make me happy to see it at all, And so people are like, oh, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, of course, people are going to say, oh, yeah, whatever. But I get emotional about these things. That's it. That's just the way it is. And I said, just think about some of the certain scenes that if this is a shot-for-shot remake, just think about those certain scenes that are just, I feel, are not going to work in real live action. And people are like, for what? That scene about when Belle and the Beast are eating on the table, that's going to be ridiculous. Or at least I hope they flip it where it doesn't. Well, they did save themselves. The Beast actually has hands, so they may not do that scene. As funny as it looks as a cartoon, I don't think it's going to deliver as well on live action, Like certain things, like when the Beast gets mad and it looks like silly and cute and all that shit. So let's see what happens, That's why we're talking about it before the fact, but this is the fun part about it. You get to exercise your brain about your expectations and your impressions about what you have to see so far, and then on top of it, the other thing was that it's a musical. And I was like, again, we have a musical. It's not only a musical, there's no original songs. At least the ones that we've seen are not original songs. It has come out now that they are putting one or two original songs on there. And I'm like, oh, that's great, man. That's fantastic. But all I know is that it still left a sour taste in me. I was like, why would they do this? Why would they make the same movie again? What's the point? It's like it's live action, okay, that's different, but it's a musical, and it's taken literally probably the exact same script from 1991. Like it's like, I was like, is this safe? Is this a good idea? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, no, that's not. And then all of a sudden, this past week, in comes the breaking news. The breaking news. Gaston, his little henchman, his little right hand, whatever, little midget, pudgy little character, LeFou, who's played by Josh Gad in this film, it has come out that he is an openly gay character in the film. And I remember like being surprised, and I yelled out to my girl, I'm like, that's why they did that. And she's like, did what? And I said, that's the reason why the film is the exact same remake as the other thing. So they can psychologically make people feel familiar by throwing something unfamiliar in the film, and that's what's the new thing about it. And she was like, holy shit, you're right. And I'm like, yes. I was like, I didn't understand why they did that. Because Cinderella's not the exact same movie. Jungle Book is not the exact same movie. Maleficent is not the exact same movie. Cinderella is not the same movie. All those, they're not the same movie. None of those things are not the same. They're different in their own way. They're live action versions of those stuff. None of them are musicals. And Beauty and the Beast, which is one of their most biggest films of all time, that's what that's why they were being sensitive and making sure that it's the exact same movie so people don't have anything bad to say too much. And lo and behold, LeFou is an openly gay character. And then I saw the scene when LeFou sings "No One's Good Like Gaston," what song I'm talking about, the one that like praises Gaston. Now, I was shocked. I was very surprised. I was like, I can't believe it. And the first instinct that my girlfriend said, and again, you gotta excuse us for this. We're that first generation that we have to kind of like witness the transition, but we'll have something to say about it. Not necessarily negative, but it's more on the shock value for us. Because the people that are in their teens and in their 20s, they're like, oh yeah, dime a dozen. I see lesbian couples and homosexual couples kiss all the time in my hallway classroom, in high school. And that's great because we live in a society where we're able to express who we really are without having to be scared of being beat up and, God knows what else that used to happen when I was a kid in high school. And so the thing is that the secret, not the secret, but like the thing is openly gay. That means it's a different, mentality about it. But she says, I don't know how I feel about that. The food was never like that. And people are expecting, us adults are expecting for it to be the exact same film that we saw as a kid. But that's just plain selfish. If you want to see the movie that you were when you was a kid, just pop in Beauty and the Beast 1991 and you'll have the version of when you were a kid. There you go. This version are for the people in 2017. You're more than welcome to join the group, but that's just the way it's going to be. Anyway, she started saying, I don't know how I feel about that, and I was like, I can understand your not frustration, but like I understand your negativity about it. I told her because a lot of people were having that, but this is what's funny. The people that were having something bad to say about it are people my age or older, and I'm like, that means nothing then, because nobody 30 or younger has anything negative to say about it. They don't. Not openly anyway. I'm not seeing it on the news. Like I'm not with it, and I'm the teen 20 generation character person. So here we go with that. Him being openly gay, and not only will he be openly gay, but there's gonna be like this kind of like invisible love triangle between LeFou, Gaston, and Belle. And the story plot point obviously is that Gaston wants to be with Belle. Belle does not want to be with Gaston. But now they're gonna insinuate that LeFou likes Gaston. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's gonna be secretly. I don't know if he's actually. I think I'm pretty sure he's openly gay, but they're gonna give him the story arc of being secretly in love with Gaston. You know what I mean? And to the point where I think that they're going to have a scene about that. They're going to talk about it. Now, this brings us over, after hearing all that, this brings us over to a news article I read on Friday, this past week. that a movie theater in Alabama will refuse to show this film because of the gay theme. You know, the added openly gay character, LeFou. And there were some people, it's like, I'm not going to take my kid to go see that. You know, this is not something that's appropriate. Because I understand that they don't want to have that conversation. It's like no parent wants to have a conversation with their 8-year-old kid about sex. It's that same way. It's like there are some families out there, we're in that generation where we don't feel comfortable about telling their 8-year-old child that why are 2 girls kissing, why are 2 guys kissing? Believe it or not, they're not seeing it in school yet. Not like that. Not at that age. You know what I mean? So there's nothing you can do about it. Now, I'm not saying I side with them. There is a fine line. I'm not siding with them. I'm siding with the part where you have to tell the kids. And that's the part that I feel that you should tell the kids. Because if you have to tell them all these other things, then you got to add this one to the list when it's time. You know, not everyone is open with homosexuality in families. You know, so they're not seeing it first and foremost in the house. And then all matters also is upbringing. Even race deals with it. Have to deal with it differently. And like, in the fact that it's Alabama, which I'm assuming that some of the things that were being said, that were being quoted, I have a feeling and could believe that they're made by African Americans. And I know, you know, that African Americans and Latino Americans are very like tight and restricted about things like that. They're not as open. You know, it's the people of my generation, we're not as open. There are some that are way more closed about the situation. And I'm dying to see how this is going to play out when the film comes out. You know, one of the greatest cartoons ever made is being made into what people might think is going to be the greatest remake ever made, maybe. You know, let's see what happens. Now, that's the part that I'm saying. Like, back to the psychological thing, is introducing something familiar with something unfamiliar. And that's a tactic, believe it or not, in film. Yes, even in watching movies, when people think that they're just watching to watch and they think that they're just watching to get away. Now, there are films that do that, but there are also films that have these intentions as well. You know, and what are you going to do about it? There's nothing you can do about it. You got to accept it. You got to accept it. We live in a society where this is an acceptance and this is the norm now. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know? Now, this is also a part where I want to tell people to calm the fuck down about the homosexuality part. Because if you are so emotional about that Disney cartoon, so much like I am, you're emotional. I totally get it. My childhood ruined, blah, 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 blah. I see those things in social media. People say things like that all the time. Not with just this movie, but they did it with Ghostbusters, and they did it with like whatever remake that they felt was not justified to their means and stuff like that. There are people out there that get emotional about this stuff. You know what I mean? Even though they don't admit it. I'm just the one that admits it on this podcast. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to spread movie awareness with all you guys about this. Okay? This is the part that should make you accept it, because like I said, if you get emotional about this, like me, you'll understand why they did it. Okay? Beauty and the Beast, the music that was made for it was written by a gay man who sadly lost his life in 1991 due to the AIDS epidemic. Now, you're like, okay, yeah, so Disney is honoring this man, the writer of the songs. He wrote the songs that you sing all the time, whether it was as a kid, in the shower, in the car when it comes on, if you have it in your iPod, or you play a music video. Because I know there's people out there. I used to do it. My girlfriend does it all the time. The song Belle, the song Beauty and the Beast, Be Our Guest, were written by him. How about that? He wrote those songs that you love so much. Not only that, he wrote, if you have seen Little Shop of Horrors, he wrote the music for that, especially for Mean Green Mother. He wrote that. That's his stuff. Not only that, but he wrote, and get this, he wrote the Little Mermaid music. He wrote Kiss the Girl. He wrote Part of Your World. Are we feeling emotional yet? Do you think that this person needs to be, Disney decided that they should honor him? And don't you think that maybe by doing this is a way to do it? He is also the reason that he was one of the people that gave an idea that Aladdin should be made into a Disney cartoon. Yes, he wrote not Part of Your World, but the other one, A Whole New World. That's the word. He wrote A Whole New World. Okay, he wrote most of the songs in the Aladdin film, and he wrote those before he died, and he didn't even get to see them put on film. And we all know how we feel about Aladdin. So before just in closing, before you bitch and whine and complain that something is going to be done and it's not in your standards, in your heart, or in your mind, just take a step back, put your feelings away, and use your mind. And figure out why, instead of complaining about the fact that it's being done that way. And tell yourself, well, why are they doing that? The thing is that people need to get out of their head is that in film, whether it's the worst film you've ever seen or the greatest film you've ever seen, the things that are in front of that camera are not there for the sake of being there. The choices that are made in film are not there for the sake of just being there. They're not there for just whatever reasons. Everything is calculated, it's written, and it's decided whether or not it should stay on the film. So, what do you have to say about that? You think that they're just... What I'm trying to say is that they didn't make LeFou gay for the sake of making him gay. They didn't do that. Some people might think they did, to kind of slap people in the face. Get over yourself. That's not the reason why they did it. Honoring honoring the life, the work life of a person that worked for Disney and wrote some of the greatest songs that you to this day, listeners, you to this day still sing. If you ask me, that's well worth to be honored. Gay, straight, black, white, I don't give a fuck. It's like if it's an all-black cast and the songs were written by a white man, or if it's an all-white cast and the song was written by a black man. Same shit. We live in a racist world and all that, and if we lived in a heavily racist world like we did 50, 60 years ago, and those things shocked you, it should be honored now. If they say, oh, they're going to honor him and they're going to make this couple a biracial couple, like things like that. They're doing them for those reasons. They do them, is what I'm saying. So get over yourself. Watch it if you want to. Don't watch it if you don't want to. You don't got to support something you don't like. Nobody's telling you to, and I won't tell you to either. You know what I mean? I'm just telling listeners to just use their mind, use their head, and realize that everything that's on film is done for a reason and not for the sake of doing it. Okay? Well, I think I've talked way too much about Beauty and the Beast and the controversy of homosexuality and gay on film and, more importantly, on television. But you can follow me on Facebook.com/WhatTheHellPcast, Twitter.com/TheHellPcast, Instagram.com/WhatTheHellPcast. You can also look at me on YouTube at What the Hell Did We Just Watch. You can also listen to me on SoundCloud, and you can search for me at What the Hell Did We Just Watch. You can search for me on Podbean, Podbase, Stitcher Radio, Podcast One. I'm all over there. Okay, so you can definitely, whatever means of listening that you desire, go right ahead. You can find me on any of those places. Now, I think that we got ourselves a show. Thank you for listening. This is Lumotional Lou. What the hell did we just watch? Real Talk Rant segment. And I just got one thing to say. It's been emotional.